The last function we need to modify is the getProductSearch function. Right now, this function uses PHP code to determine which products match the search term. Let's modify that to perform the search in SQL instead, using the like operator. Open the products.php file in your text editor, and let's scroll down to the getProductSearch function. This function starts with the full list of shirts. It loops through all the shirts one at a time with a for each loop. It looks for the given search term in the name of the product. If the search term is found, the shirt is added to the results array. That array, with all the products that contain the search term in their names, is returned to the code that calls this function. We've been using the variable name results to hold our PDO statement objects, so let's change this name to something else, something like matches. Let's replace all of this with code that queries the database to perform the search. We'll start by including the database file. Then we'll add our familiar try-catch block. We'll again want to load all the results from our query into a PDO statement object. Our DB variable was created in the database include file, so we can call methods on it here. We'll be receiving input here, the search term, so we'll want to prepare the statement and bind a parameter to it. We want to select the same product information we've been using in our other queries. We were going through the products in order of SKU and returning any matches in that same order, so let's keep the ordering consistent. This retrieves all the products right now, but let's change the query to retrieve only those products whose name match the search term. We can do that with a where clause. We want to search the product name, which is contained in a column called name. Imagine someone entered the search term green. We could check if the name were equal to the search term like this. But that's not exactly what we want here. That would not perform a partial match. That would only work if the whole name of the shirt were green. Instead of an equal sign, we can use a different operator. The like operator checks if the value in the column name matches a particular pattern. To use like, you also have to use a wildcard character, a percent sign in SQL, like this. The percent sign means any characters, so this particular where clause looks for all records where the name contains any characters followed by green followed by any characters. And those characters are optional, so this would also match names that start with green or that end with green. We want to replace this whole block here with a placeholder. We'll next need to bind that value to the placeholder. We've been using bind param for this so far. This works just fine when the value you want to bind is in a variable. But we need more than just that search term in this placeholder. We also need the percent signs. In this case, we can't use bind param. We'll need to use bind value. You could pass a variable to bind value without any problems. There is a subtle difference between how bind value and bind param work. Bind param binds the placeholder to the specific variable, even if that variable changes later. Bind value, on the other hand, binds the placeholder to the value in the variable at the moment of the binding. In all the examples we've used before this one, either bind param or bind value would have worked just fine. With bind value, though, we can use concatenation. If a site visitor searches for the word green, this code will replace the question mark in the query with percent sign, green, percent sign, and the bind value method will surround it in single quotation marks. With this value bound, we can now execute the query. At this point, the data should have been retrieved from MySQL and loaded into the results object. Jumping down past the try-catch block, we can load all the results into a variable using the fetchAll command. Then we can return the list of matches. Let's take a look in the browser. We can perform a search for something like red. The getProductSearch function gets called, A query is executed to select all the shirts where the name is like red, and the matching shirts get returned. We have updated the function, and it's always a good idea to make sure your comments are still correct. This one has changed a little bit. We don't really loop through all the products anymore. We refactored the model code for all 4 of these functions. Scrolling down, we actually no longer have any place in any of our code that calls the getProductsAll function. That makes sense since we don't have any place on the website that displays all the products at once. I'll leave it in for future reference, but feel free to remove it. We should at least remove all this code for the old products array. This comment is taking up most of the product model code right now. Let's browse through the site one more time, making sure that all the pages are correctly pulling their data from the database. The homepage list. The list of latest shirts on the homepage is in order. The shirts listing page shows our first 8 shirts with links to all 4 pages. The link to page 2 works just fine. The link to shirt 112 works just fine. And all the sizes are here in the drop-down. We have successfully moved all of our product information for the Shirts for Mike website to a MySQL database. Great work! We covered how to work with the PHP Data Objects class, or PDO, as well as the PDO statement class. We have explored many of the different PDO methods we can call to integrate PHP and MySQL. For the most part, we had already separated concerns pretty well, so we were able to make most of these changes in the model code. We only needed a small amount of refactoring in the controller code and view code. Everything's working fine now. Having the content in the database should make it easier to maintain over time, and it will give us some flexibility for adding even more features to the site in the future. I'm going to head back over to the warehouse and see if Mike has anything else for us to do. Good luck with your final code challenge.